Patreon.com/the Walk-Off Podcast. $4 a month gets you in there. How do you grade this front office navigation of the offseason this year? Are you generally happy with it? Are you generally frustrated with it? Where do you stand, Craig? Let's get right into Craig Ballard's opinions because
Yeah,
everybody's heard mine ad nauseum. Let's get familiar with Craig.
I am ear to ear grinning with the offseason that the Toronto Blue Jays have put together. I think that certain things that needed to be addressed were addressed. I think it's a very pleasant surprise to me. Although we knew Rogers was going to spend at some point, but clearly we're there now. I mean, man, they're into the tax, they're spending money. I really like the veteran a presence that has been brought in, and I start. People will think I'm talking about Kiermaier or something like that. I'm talking about Chris Bassett. I'm talking about Chris Bassett really impresses me between the ears, and every fifth day, yes, but between the ears, you can tell this guy just lives and breathes baseball. My take on Chris Bassett is always this is a guy that's ready every fifth day. Doesn't just want the ball, he's ready. So the previous 4 days, man, he's put in his work. He is ready to perform and to be a legitimate asset for this team. Best friends of Matt Chapman as well, by the way, for those of you who really want a Matt Chapman re-up. But I've really liked the addressing the outfield defense. I'm going to take this offseason back even to the trade deadline because when I look at the bottom of this Blue Jay lineup right now, you're likely going to see Varsho in the 7, Whit Merrifield. So there's 2 new guys in the 8 and another new guy, Kiermaier. That's 7, 8, 9. There has never been a more dynamic bottom of the lineup in Toronto Blue Jay history, especially from what they can do on the base pass. Well, Craig, you haven't been around for the whole. I do hate to tell you, I have. This is an old timer over here. I do hate to tell you, I have. And there's never been this dynamic, at least potentially, at the bottom of the lineup. Put that sort of base running pressure on the pitcher as the lineup gets turned back over to Springer, Bo, and Slim Daddy Vladdy. I mean, I see so many things that I like here. I think the pitching staff is grinning ear to ear. The defense that has walked in the door, it's not just enough, Adam, to say this is an improved defense. This has become a stellar top freaking tier defense. And again, we can go back to last year, the Whit Merrifield, how versatile he is, and even further to that, Matt Chapman at third base. So I think these guys have really addressed a lot of things that I wanted to see addressed. You and I were talking earlier about the Teo trade. I love bringing in Swanson, but way under the radar, in my opinion anyway, on that trade is the addition of Adam Macko. So I even feel like going forward, things were addressed, not just addressed for the 2023 Blue Jays, but I even feel like going forward, these guys addressed something. And if you talk about Shapiro and Atkins, as glowing as I am for Shapiro and Atkins, I firmly believe the Blue Jays have never been in better hands than these guys. As you've said many times, Adam, that does not mean that they're batting 1,000. What regime is, and we can point to, they have not drafted and developed outfield talent. So to be able to make trades to bring in a Dalton Varsho, a high upside left-handed hitter, even defensive brilliance, about to enter his prime, controllable. Like that's what this organization has been missing. Shapiro and Atkins haven't really been able to do that. So I just think they addressed a lot of things. I guess I'm on the opposite. If you take what Hey Kami has said and all the vitriol and the vile, if you go to the complete opposite spectrum, that's where you'll find me, Adam. I'm very impressed and pleased with this offseason.
Thrilled with it?
Yes.
I guess let's look at who's out, who's in. I know there's going to be some smaller pieces around the edges, but generally speaking, the guys we're looking at who have departed, we got Teoscar's out, Gurriel's out, Moreno, not a big contributor last year, but was obviously tied to a bigger role this year. He's out. Ross Stripling is out. Am I missing anybody?
Teo Lourdes, Strip. Boy, I can't think of anywhere that we're missing.
Those are the big ones. I know I'm going to upset some David Phelps fans or something like that. Congratulations on retirement there, David Phelps.
Yeah.
Who we're bringing in, we've got Swanson in the bullpen, Varsho, Kiermaier, Bassett, and Brandon Belt. Who is the incoming piece that you think is going to exceed expectations for people watching Blue Jays games this year?
If you'll allow me to cheat, because again, I want to go back to the trade deadline. Whit Merrifield. I don't think the Toronto Blue Jay fan base is fully have their head wrapped around how good Whit Merrifield is. Think about the Shapiro and Atkins era. This is another thing that they've tried, and if we're being honest, have failed on. They've tried. Man, Chris Coughlin, Eric Sogard, Alan Hansen, Kevin Biggio. Honestly, and I'm missing a million. There's like 8 or 9 guys in the Shapiro and Atkins era that they've tried to have be, their poor man's Whit Merrifield, their poor man's Swiss Army knife. Now they have the actual Whit Merrifield. I think it's a very, very, very big deal. Of the players you actually did mention, remiss of me to not mention them earlier, Adam, because this Brandon Belt signing is intriguing, man. Intrigue. When I talk about that 7, 8, 9 of our show, Whit, that's with Belt in the DH spot. So that's with only playing one of your catchers. So you get that left-handed bat in the lineup with the shorter porch now in right field. This seems like yes, please to me. And we know we love Alejandro Kirk. What's not to love about Alejandro Kirk? Okay, fine. But for having an open, honest conversation, Adam Mack, we saw him regress before our very. That second half last season for Kirk was completely unacceptable. He had a lower OPS in the second half than Raimel Tapia. You know how I feel about Raimel Tapia. Glorious hair, but that's about it. You cannot, and the problem, Adam, is remember the Jays had him hitting in the 4 spots. So that's completely, his second half was completely unacceptable. Could it have been because of wear and tear? I bet it was because of wear and tear. Now, Belt, a lot less wear and tear on Jansen, who's been injury prone as well, on Jansen and Kirk. So that Belt move, man, it has the opportunity to be the gift that keeps on giving. My number one answer, though, is going to be Whit Merrifield. Look at what happened. Scott said from day one last season, I love Santiago Espinal, but my concern is if you play Espinal, if he becomes an everyday third baseman at the time, he was talking about that or whatever, as the season goes on, I'm concerned he's going to be exposed. That's what played out. Santiago Espinal was poor in that second half. They benched him in September and let Whit Merrifield go to second base. And what happened? Whit Merrifield caught fire, absolute fire. So my answer here is going to be Whit Merrifield. And oh my God, I'm going to cheat again because I'm just going to give a shout out here real quick, Adam. Zach Pop. I'm really excited about what Zach Pop is going to bring to this bullpen.
Well, there's a lot to dissect there.
I cheated. I cheated. I went back to the trade deadline for 2 of the guys.
No. The Whit Merrifield thing is interesting. We'll talk Merrifield, how the second baseman position shakes out. I do want to ask you about Brandon Belt and the workload reduction that you foresee for Alejandro Kirk and Danny Jansen. Do you foresee Brandon Belt being a, for lack of a better term, full-time DH then? Like less DH days for a guy like Kirk, so more true days off for Alejandro Kirk? Is that what you're saying?
I think right now, ideally, what I see right here, right now, is Belt should be in the middle of that lineup, breaking up Slim Daddy Vladdy and Kirk, or Slim Daddy Vladdy and Chapman if Chapman catches fire and deserves to be moved up to that 5 spot. But Belt right in that 4 spot, veteran presence. I've got some friends who live down in the Bay Area. Some are big-time San Francisco fans. Some are not baseball fans at all, but they know the vibe of the San Francisco Giant fan. San Francisco Giant fans are screaming bloody murder. They are livid. This guy's a god in that organization, and it's because of how he's contributed to winning. How exciting is that? They can't believe that San Francisco let this guy walk out the door, and it was a 1-year contract. That they can't believe it. I love when I hear things like that because we're newer to Brandon Belt, right? But here's the fan base entrenched saying, "Oh, Craig, did you ever get a leader that just walked into your clubhouse? Did you ever get a clutch player that just walked into your clubhouse?" Things like that excite me.
I have to say, when I first saw the news about signing Brandon Belt, it felt like a much smaller deal at the time. Like it felt like his role on the team was going to be a lot smaller than I'm starting to think it's going to be. And hearing things like that from you are definitely, I think we haven't had, and this has been a complaint that I've had with the structure of this team for the last 2 or 3 seasons, is that we have kind of, we could have this debate another time, but it's felt like we've wasted the DH spot as a day off spot. Right, it's an opportunity to get someone a partial rest day, whereas you look at other teams and they've got an absolute masher. They've got a Giancarlo Stanton in their DH role, right? They've got a Nelson Cruz
Martinez
in their exactly right. Like, and we haven't had that, and I feel like I'm starting to feel like maybe that's what this Brandon Belt role is going to be, where he might give Vladdy a day off at first here and there, but otherwise, I'm starting to think he could be a real contributor out of that DH spot, and I'm excited by that.
Adam, that's a big time point you made as well that I'm remiss. I should have mentioned. Slim Daddy Vladdy takes days off kicking and screaming. That is their not their deal, or what's the word? That is their compromise. Okay, so your days off, you'll be in the DH spot because Slim Daddy Vladdy, he sees if I'm not playing first base, that means it's either Lourdes or Kevin Biggio. I mean, I love Lourdes and Kevin Biggio, but are you kidding me? For our chances to win, it's got to be me out there. Him sitting down for Brandon Belt, way different story, way different scenario. I think he would do that with bells on. He would be very pleased. He would understand, okay, first base is spoken for really well today. And it's only going to be once a week. It's not going to be a big deal for Slim Daddy Vladdy. And I think he himself, he was another guy in the second half last season. He turned into a double play machine. Remember, he couldn't get any launch angle, turned into a double play machine. So this Brandon Belt, from how it knocks everybody down to the amount of at-bats that they have to have, man, I think it's a gift that could keep on giving. It's really interesting when you say, I think that's a lot of Blue Jay fans' journey with Brandon Belt, Adam. I think at first it was like, oh, that came out of nowhere. Okay, well, I guess that could be interesting. Okay, well, that's, but the deeper you dive, man, this guy brings a lot to the table.
This probably isn't the best way to evaluate a trade, but the way you spoke about these San Francisco fans that you're familiar with who are livid at the departure of Brandon Belt, I love hearing that. It was the same with Dalton Varsho. Arizona fans were heartbroken by the departure of Dalton Varsho. Those are the guys I want on my team. Absolutely. All right, let's pivot from here.
Well, walk-off community, I hope you enjoyed that little clip. This full episode is going to be available on our main channel sometime in the next few weeks. However, if you can't wait for that, you can get the full episode right now available on our Patreon. That's patreon.com/the Walk Off Podcast.